Well, thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. This is not going to be like a conventional presentation that I'm guessing you guys have, with lots of PowerPoint slides and things like that, because that's not what we're here to talk about. Anthony and Dennis have been kind enough to give my club here in England, the Norfolk Radio Club, which is on the little east coast, a little bump that sticks out the side of the UK. And they've given us several talks, including a series on HF for beginners recently. And they did ask us if we come and tell you or a little bit about our club, and also why we do this now online, and which is really to do with the pandemic and what we do now. So that's what we're going to do. And if it's okay, and we've got some captions as well, so you get an idea of the sort of thing we do. We put a little caption on like this, so you know who we are. This is Tammy, M0TC.
Hello.
She's my wife, and I'm very, very, she's always been supportive, as I hope most people's partners are. But as you'll see in the story that we're about to tell you, she became an invaluable part of keeping my club going. So let's start anyway at the beginning. What we thought we'd do is share with you what our club used to be like. So in pre-2020, let's say. And the sort of thing we did, just to give you a feel for a club. It's probably in many ways the same as the clubs in the US as well. But we've got some pictures to support this short story about what the club used to do. So we'll start with talks, and I'm sure we just got some pictures to show you now. Tammy, if you can show that. So this is a talk which I'm sure would be the same, much the same in the States as well. This talk is in a school. We've been meeting at the City of Norwich School, which is like the capital sort of city of Norfolk, this county we're in. And there's a big school there, and they gave us this room, which is the sixth form common room. So a sort of, for 17, 18-year-olds, it's their common room. And we've met there for many, many years. And we would do regular talks like this. As I said, clubs do up and down there. We met every Wednesday at this school, apart from 2 weeks at Christmas. Every single Wednesday we would meet at this school between 7 and 9:30. As well as doing things for adults, we also, which may be a little bit more unusual, we have a specific group for young people, because we feel it's very important to teach young people about radio, and also just about radio electronics and circuitry and things in general. So we can show you a picture now of Bright Sparks, as we call it. Someone named that Bright Sparks many years ago. We've run this for well over 10 years. I don't know really when it started. Typically the ages are between 9 or 10 years old and 18. And you can see there we've got some adult helpers and the youngsters there. I don't know what they're making, but you can see we're teaching them how to solder, and they make various kits and things. Also, John and Pete, who were running the Bright Sparks at that time, they're quite clever with software as well. And they developed a buggy, and I'm not sure, that may be one of the things they were making there. So if we look at the next slide, you can see that these youngsters here were very excited. They'd all made their own buggy, not from a commercial kit, but from a strip board and, the good old fashioned way of doing it, with a microprocessor, which Pete, the person right at the back there, programmed. And they were able to have a little Robot Wars. I don't know if you have Robot Wars over there in the States, but it was a very, very popular program here 3 or 4 years ago anyway. And they had their own Robot Wars sort of championship at the school. So it was a great program, and it's still running, Bright Sparks. We give them one of our meetings is for Bright Sparks, as well as adults doing something else, but we do this once a month, sorry. The other things that we do in our club, again, probably like you do in the US. So this is the next picture, shows you a tabletop sale. I mean, you can call it a junk sale if you want to be a bit more unkind, because I think that's what mainly people bring. That's a typical one in this big room that we meet in. And people just bring stuff that they've got at home just to sell to others. We do that sort of typically twice a year. Now, another thing that we do occasionally is an auction. And the reason that you can see people there, we haven't got a picture of the auctioneer, sadly, here. But you can see this is an auction going on, and people are watching, and they're hopefully being fairly entertained by stuff being sold at auction. It's all for fun and all just for members. I'll talk about members' numbers, the numbers that we have later on. So far, I'm not showing you probably anything that's different to what the average radio club would do. The next thing I can show you, though, is a first glimpse of when we did start to use remote technology. And at that time, we only knew about Skype. So we did set up some equipment. I should say at this point to declare an interest that I love television. I've always loved television. I've always been fascinated with it since I was a kid. So I had quite a few bits of equipment. And instead of spending money on transceivers and things, I would typically spend money on television equipment. And we started to have occasional guests remotely from various parts of the country and indeed the world, where it was impractical, obviously, for people to travel to give us a talk. So we did do these at the school, and we beamed in, as it were, talks by guest speakers like this one. And I'm sure you're going to recognize there, many of you will recognize that's Bob Heil, K9EID, sadly no longer with us, of course, but he gave us a wonderful talk via Skype. And that's what we used to do sometimes, not very often, probably 2 or 3 times a year. Something else which happened, obviously, getting towards Christmas, we would have a Christmas party there. And that's, you see a typical number. I mean, we would, at that time, we had about 100, 120 members, which is quite large. In our county of Norfolk, there are 4 radio clubs, I think, 3 or 4 amateur radio clubs. We probably are the largest, and at that time we had about 100 odd members, 120 members, of which we get about 70 or 80 at something like this Christmas party. That's where we would bring in sometimes entertainers, a professional entertainer to give us a party, and then sometimes we do it all ourselves. There's me holding up a card for someone to mime something, just for a bit of fun, but it's what we would do at Christmas time. Now, I don't know how popular direction finding is in the US, but that's another thing that this club has been strong on for many, many years. Often called fox hunting, although we have to be careful whenever I announce that now, just to make sure that anybody who's not an amateur understands that doesn't involve animals or anything. And it's purely direction finding. This was actually, the ones you see there are quite simple ones, and they're based on a kit, which a member many, many years ago, a lovely chap called Doug, G3HUL, he developed a simple circuit using a 555 timer, for those of you into electronics, which just basically switches between 2 dipole antennas on a piece of wood to measure where the signal was strongest, to try and get a bearing, in other words. It's a very simple circuit. We put a kit together for about £8, so that's about $10 or $11. And people can make their own. It doesn't include the wood or the metal box, which can be a tobacco tin or something like that. But it does include everything else that they need to make it. And it's been a very popular part of the club for some years. You can see the next picture shows you some of the members using this. And this looks like the start of a fox hunt. So we would do this at the time. This is at the back of the school where we meet. On the playing field, they take their first readings and first bearings on the field. And of course, some people have got more sophisticated equipment. This is a Doppler system with an array of 4 antennas on the top of a car. There's Lynn there driving, one of the partners of one of the teams. And the next picture shows you what that's like inside that car. So you can see they've got a map. It looks like that's on an iPad or something. And then down below Kevin's hand there, you can just see a Ramsey kit. I'm sure you know about Ramsey Electronics, and they did a very nice direction finding kit. Sadly, no longer, that they don't make it anymore, but you can see that's the sort of thing we would do. And that was a very popular activity that wouldn't just necessarily be the regular thing on a Wednesday night. Now, in addition to those, we went and did special events. And special events, at least for us, is how we define that, is it's when we take radio out into public places and public events so that they can see what the hobby's all about. And this one is, you can see, I think, a railway carriage there, because this is called Railways on the Air. It runs every year at the end of September. We're lucky in Norfolk to have several heritage railways, as we call them, old railways. Some of them run steam, or some of the old diesels. And this was at a place called Dereham, the Mid-Norfolk Railway. And this is a station that we set up there a few years ago, probably about 5 years ago now. Another special event that's very popular, and you may have in the States there, is called International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend. And that's actually in August, so that's coming up in about a month's time. And this is from a Norfolk lighthouse called Haysborough Lighthouse, although it's spelt Happisburgh. But Happisburgh is what it's how it's spelt, but it's actually called Haysborough. You can see a view, obviously, on the outside and on the inside. By the way, just as a little bit of a fact, if any of you are interested in lighthouses, this is one of the few privately owned lighthouses in the country, run by a trust in the village. Now, this is what it looks like inside on a typical day. If you've ever worked in a lighthouse or even been in one, you'll know the acoustics are terrible for speaking. So we tend to use Morse. You can see Jim Bacon G3YLA. Some of you may know that, especially if you're interested in things like weather and propagation. Jim was a professional weather forecaster for the BBC for many years. He's using a key there and a paddle. It's really the only way you can do it. Even talking with a headset and boom mic is very difficult inside a lighthouse. But you can tell that the building is round there, just from that picture. Now, another thing that we do as a club, we're very keen on contesting. And in particular, of course, we have field days. Like I know you've just had one in there in the States. Anthony and Dennis had just come from one when they gave us a talk 2 weeks ago. And this is one that's at the back of the building, actually, where we're speaking to you from. I'll explain where we are later, but it's basically my works premises. And I'm lucky that we've got this field behind us and or in front of us, in fact, which is part of the property. So we're able to host these field days every year. And I guess this probably doesn't look too different. You can just see a barbecue on the back of the pickup truck there. This probably doesn't look too dissimilar to things that you would do in the US. And that's everybody crowding around radios. This one, I think, was probably on our National Field Days, it's called, which is a CW contest, which is the first weekend of June. A couple of K3s there and everything. And there's another one there. There's John and Andy. So there's nothing probably new about this. Now, what is different is that we wanted National Field Day to become a little bit more of a family affair, family event, and an event for people not just into contesting or not just into CW. So it's now, is it 15 years, Tammy? Number 15 we did this year?
Yeah, I think so.
We had to miss a couple of years for COVID. So we turned National Field Day, which is at the beginning of June, into something called Radioactive. And Radioactive's got nothing to do with radiation, you'll be glad to know. This was Jim G3YLA again, giving a talk on propagation. So we do have a few talks. This is done here in this building where Tammy and I, where our studio is. This is our works premises. And this we're able to host here because we have got several acres of land and as well as toilets and everything. So we can make it quite an accessible thing, not just a field, which would put off a lot of partners and families coming. And one of the things we can do is talks like this, but of course we could always do this at school. But there's other things. So like this next activity is etching a circuit board, something sadly I don't think is taught in many schools now. And we can't safely teach it really at the school because they probably wouldn't like the idea of us bringing all the chemicals and things that we would need. So this is an opportunity for people to etch their own circuit board and make a project from absolute start to finish. And this is a circuit board being etched. That's Nick M0HGU showing how to do that. And then of course you can drill the circuit board and start putting it together. And again, in this building where I'm at, this is our electronics business building. We've got benches and things and we can show people how to make stuff. Not always practical to do from the school in just the 2 hours or so that we meet. Again, as trying to make it popular, there's lots of other things we do, to be honest, not just talks, but we do other things. In fact, it won't be so unusual for you to have drive-through movies out in the US, at least in some places. But here we also project a movie on the Saturday night onto a wall, and people can bring a drink of beer or cider or something like that. And that's something we do. On the Sunday, this is a picture of Tammy and I, because this is our building, and we host a Sunday lunch, and we cook some roast meats and put them into rolls with stuffing and sauces and things like that and serve them. And typically we'll get 70, 80, 90 people, sometimes even as many 100 people, not just the members of our club, but their families. And we think that's really important to show them what this hobby is all about. They often see typically their husband, but maybe their wife or their children go off to this funny place to meet, and they didn't really understand, maybe what the hobby was all about. So we hope that making this weekend a very open affair for families. By the way, we also have a direction finding hunt on foot. We're in a village here, and there's plenty of spaces we can hide beacons. So that's another thing that we do. But that's Tammy and me cooking the Sunday lunch, I think, with your cold call sign, M3PLU. Now an M0, I think. And then finally, just to show you another picture from Radioactive, this is a raffle that we have. And I've got quite a lot of contacts in both my commercial, my work world, and also some of the radio suppliers, and they're very generous in giving us lots of prizes, and we raise several £100s every year for charities, typically Cancer Research and Alzheimer's Society, because they're both things that have affected Tammy's family and mine. So that's a nice thing to do as well, which we really enjoy this weekend, the first weekend in June. It's nearly always great weather, but not always. This year was a bit shaky. But anyway, we're always talking about the weather, Britt, so we better get off that subject. Now, one other thing we would just like to show you is something else we do to get involved with the community, something that you could maybe do in the US with your schools, is our school, our country has a thing called National Science Week. And linked in with that, most schools put on a science display of some kind. And the school where we meet, they give us a classroom, and we set up a big display of various things. So this was from Science Day. This is James M0 UKS sitting down. He likes APRS in particular. So he's got a big display there of APRS rigs. Some of you are into your rigs will see there's a couple of Kenwood rigs, base station ones. There's also a couple of portables with built-in GPSs. And that's just one thing that we show in that room. Something else, again, we encourage young people to get involved making things. That's one of our older people there, Sam. In fact, he's just left now and gone into the world of work. Can't remember his call sign. I should have that at hand, but I can't. That's Tammy sitting next to him, sort of showing him how to make something. What are you making there, Tammy? Are you making the same thing?
One of Hans's kits.
Oh, yes. QRP labs.
Yeah, the QDX,
QCX.
QCX.
And Sam is making a little pocket radio there. Another picture, I mean, obviously we have a special event station from the Science Day, again, to just show the general public. We were bringing their children around on what the sort of thing that amateur radio is really all about. But we're not pushing amateur radio so hard. We're really showing it as part of science and how to make science relevant to young people so that they hopefully learn a bit from it. And these are some display boards that we made quite a few years ago now. I'll just take you through them, those 4 that we're showing there. Watch Your Voice is simply a little oscilloscope screen there so that children can see what their voice looks like to a computer or to a piece of electronics. So it just shows the waveform from a microphone. The next one is Digital Signals, showing something similar, but just for an interest, and you may find this useful if you ever want to show how digital signals are made up with things like mark space ratios. If you get an old traditional keyboard that was one of the old AT keyboards, and you measure that and put that through into an oscilloscope, you get various slightly different mark space ratios from various keys that you press. So you just have to give it a 5-volt supply, and that can be a really easy way of showing the principle of mark space ratios and how all those keys can send all that information down just 2 wires to the PC. The next one along is a picture yourself. That was cool. That's just really simply a little small television camera and a monitor showing what video is all about. And then at the last one on the right-hand side, you can see what are communication satellites. So that's another display board, and it's got some animated LEDs showing you how it sends data or a signal from one part of the Earth up to the satellite and then back down to another part of the Earth. Simple things, but they're hopefully fun for youngsters in particular, to show them a little bit about science. And of course, most of that, as you can imagine, is relevant to our hobby too. And this is another shot from the Science Day with some more youngsters making things, basically. all got their goggles on and their soldering irons and having fun making. And that's where several of the students or some of the bright sparks have actually come by coming to our science day over the years and have got interested in the club and have joined the club, and some of them are licensed. Max in the far corner there, he's licensed. I can't quite see who the others are, but
Frankie in the middle.
oh, Frankie's in the middle, yeah, and he's licensed as well. So we do encourage them to obviously get into the radio side of it, but we don't force them to. We just think it's a good thing to teach youngsters about electronics, because they're often now in the school timetable isn't time for people, for students, for the teachers really, to give the students extracurricular activities like soldering and learning something like that. Now we come, so that's really just to give you an overview again, anybody who joined us a bit later, that's what our Norfolk Amateur Radio Club did as a regular thing. That was our typical year really. But on Monday, the 23rd of March, 2020, everything changed, at least for us in the UK, because that's when our Prime Minister at the time, Boris Johnson, gave this video message on the Monday evening to say that we weren't going to be allowed to go out and mix with other people. You only could go to work if you couldn't work from home. And we all had to obviously say socially distanced. And from that moment, and incidentally, that was just 2 days after the science day. That's why we put them in this order. So the science day that you've just seen, this was 2 days later, because we were hearing rumors that this might happen. This was a big effect. I know that you'll all have your own stories as well about COVID, and we don't want to talk about COVID too much here, except to say this was a defining moment for the club, because myself as the chairman, I was worried about, how we were going to continue when we met every single Wednesday. And I know for some people, it wasn't just the radio, it was actually the social side. It was their club. It was the way they met people, met their friends, and had a chat every week. So at this moment, this is what we had to decide is how to connect, how to keep the club going, when we had no idea at that time, of course, that it would be many, many, many months, even years, before we could actually meet again. So this is a part which I can tell you, because I mentioned earlier that I've always been interested in television, to play around with really electronics, but also about 20 odd years ago, when I was based in Cambridge, I worked for the Philips company, by the way, to start my career. And I then started my own business when I was about 20, 21, which was quite young. And I got interviewed on various local media, including the BBC. And to try and cut a long story fairly short, I got involved with doing phone-ins. And then they thought I had an aptitude for broadcasting and things. So I started doing other things. This is all in my spare time as well as running a business. And I ended up presenting after probably for about 10 to 12 years. I was presenting regular radio programs and occasional television programs appearing on TV as well, about science and technology. Being based in Cambridge, which I was at the time, that was a great place for this sort of thing. So I would produce a half-an-hour radio show every week called The Techno Show for many, many, many years. Now, when I moved back to Norfolk, which is where we are now for family reasons, I hadn't touched any of that broadcasting at all. I don't think you'd ever see me do any broadcasting.
No.
We've been married nearly 11 years now, and we obviously knew each other for a long time before that, but you'd never seen any of this stuff. The relevance of telling you all this now is because that was also what I thought, well, maybe if I can combine my interest in television and things and my experience with broadcasting and persuade my wife to help me, maybe we could do some kind of online show to keep the club going. But we didn't have long to do it. In fact, we tried to do this in 2 days because we were locked down in this country on the Monday. And on the Wednesday, I really wanted to try and put something together to unite or keep united, really, all of our members. So now what we're going to show you is the very first, a couple of slides from the first NARC Live. But first we'll show you a studio that we made here in this building. This isn't exactly where we are sitting now, but this is an idea of what we did. Now, a lot of that equipment we were already using for those Skype talks. You remember the one I showed you with Bob Heil and the equipment that we used. Well, this is some of that, plus a bit, with a couple of cameras there you can see. I'd really never done any of this stuff called live streaming, really, except via Skype, which is, I guess, a form of live streaming. I hadn't even heard of Zoom at this point, but I just thought that we could throw something together in our conference room, which is where that room is that you can see, just for the few weeks that we thought we might be locked down. Little did we know. And we can show you a couple of stills now from the first one. So this was our title slide. It was very quickly made. It's a bit ropey. It's not full HD, which we broadcast in now. This was the first pictures, which is just really a pull-up banner behind my face, behind my head, sorry. And then on the wall, as you can see, there's literally a piece of paper put up with a laser print of our logo and our web address. That was how crude our first NARC Live was.
This is the shot we have now.
Oh, right. This is the one I have now. Yeah.
Much more proper now.
It's a bit proper. Yeah. Thanks for going. So that was the first one, though. That was just done within a couple of days of us being locked down. To try and unite the club, I sent out a newsletter and said, please watch this. We also, by the way, had real life guests booked for that from a company called SDR Play, who are a lovely company who produce some really innovative software-defined radio receivers, which you might know of. And this is just one of the screenshots we've got. We haven't got a recording of this first one, unfortunately, because we never thought about recording it. The point was to make it live so that people could interact as well. So that was our very first thing we called NARC Live. It was really thrown together. And once again, thanks so much for my wife to help me, because there's no way I could do all of that, setting up the mixer and putting titles up and everything. I was drawing on some of my experience, although in radio, you do a lot of your own work. It's called self-op, and you just do a lot of the operating. When it came to the television experience that I had, of course, you don't do that yourself. You have a team, you have a studio of people. The BBC in London is where I did a lot of my pieces for television, and of course, you just don't know the other side of it. But because of my interest in television and having some equipment, we were able to work through it and gradually refine it. Now, just to give you a little bit of a story about NARC Live, we're going to show you a few excerpts. There's no easy way of showing you this, because there's so many of recordings that we've made. We haven't really counted them, but it's getting on possibly for 100, 150 of the shows, I would imagine. We made them a magazine show so that in fact, we can show you one, I think now, can't we, Tammy? The first one that we ever uploaded to YouTube, and that was because people have started to go out a little bit, was one which we had as our guest Martin Lynch. Now, you might know Martin Lynch. He runs a company called Martin Lynch and Sons. He's sort of semi-retired now, but it's a very large ham radio retailer in the UK. It's certainly one of the biggest, if it's not the largest one. Probably like Tim Duffy, and the same sort of scale of size for the UK. And he came on as a guest on our program on September the 16th, 2020. So, and we've got parts of that which we did upload. So we're going to play bits of that to you now, and you can see what we put together. So this is what we call the title sequence. And you can see there what we were going to cover on here. Who Works from a Shack Like This was a competition. Every week when we started, we thought, I think from almost the beginning, we thought we would do a competition again to get people to interact. Now this music, you made this, didn't you? You created this on GarageBand, I think. And for those of you who can read Morse, you should be able to understand that the beeps and dots and dashes and things from that were spelling out NARC Live. I'll stop talking now so you can see the beginning. Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 16th of September, coming to you from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello, and David G7URP.
And you're very welcome. Good to see you. On the show tonight, we meet Martin G4HKS. You ask the questions to the man behind Martin Lynch and Sons. Lots of your suggestions on how to keep pigeons off your antenna. and we find out who works from a shack like this. But first, a few notices for you. And James M0ZAH says, please could you announce this on the NARC Live this Wednesday? Tony G0MQG and myself will be trialing it. So we'll gradually come back to us. This is us sitting here now. We're not actually in the same room as that was, to be completely honest, but I suppose it hasn't changed much for something that's getting on for 4 years ago when we started it. But we could do it, hopefully a fairly professional job, but it did keep the club connected. It kept the club together. And in fact, ironically, we didn't charge any membership for the rest of that year, but our club started growing because we didn't lock this away. We didn't put it behind any kind of secure key or anything. We live streamed this to Facebook and British Amateur Television Club from the very early days. Facebook isn't the best place technically to stream to in terms of quality, but it is somewhere that a lot of people found us. We didn't do it for that reason, really. We just did it because I know a lot of our members used Facebook and they'd find that really easy to tune into. This is how we picked up quite a few more members. I don't know if you can show a little bit more of that one. Do you want to show a little bit more of that? Maybe talking to Martin, because some of you may have heard of Martin Lynch. And
there's the shack bit if you want to.
Oh yeah, we could do the shack. One of the things I said we started to do was we thought it would be a good idea to have a competition. This was to encourage people to interact, to basically send us an email and you know, feel they were part of the show. Because although we did make this available to everybody, we never marketed it for everybody because we wanted to. We wouldn't put anybody off, but we wanted to keep it so that it was mainly Norfolk Amateur Radio Club members, so that they recognised each other. We thought that was really important for people's mental health, you know, and for the social side of the club, keeping it together. So we came up with a competition, which we called Who Works from a Shack Like This? And every week we would feature the picture of someone's shack. And of course, unless they were a friend of yours, you wouldn't know what their shack looked like. And it really worked well. And we did over 80, I think.
I think so.
I think it was over 80 members very sportingly sent in a picture of their shack so that people could guess. And sometimes they had a clue and sometimes they didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's so Tammy's just going to skip forward to that little part of the program. Now, this is the time every week when we've been saying for some months now, there's a big puzzle on our mind because this is when we ask, who works from a shack like this? This is the shack we featured last week. Lots of hints and tips in there, I think. Let's have a look. What's there, Tammy? We've got radio. Well, anyway, we've got a few people have written into this week. So we've got a few people with some ideas.
Yeah, okay.
You kick off.
So we've got Malcolm G3PDH says he has two guesses. So he said purely based on the Bengali Spark Morse key. He's put it's either Chris G4CCX or Les G0DFC. And he's put Morse key plus the ICOM 7100. Oh,
it's 100. Yes, that's the main radio in the middle there. Okay. Chris G4CCX, though, he says. So there we are. That just gives you an idea of what we did every week. That was the competition that we did. And we still, by the way, to this day, and the program we did a couple of hours ago, that also featured a competition, although we ran out of shacks in the end, as you'd expect, with over 80 people sent that in. But it was something, and then some of these just might be like, one of the reasons we're showing you is it might just inspire some of you with clubs that maybe, you know, have to meet online because of the size of your club or the distance, the area that you cover. This might be the sort of thing that you can fill in. Do you want to show a little bit of Martin Lynch there as well?
Show the introduction if you'd like.
Yeah. So this is the sort of thing we would do. Now, I should briefly explain before Tammy just starts that video, is that before when we met every Wednesday at the school, typically we would have alternate Wednesdays. One week would be a formal, as we called it, which would be a talk typically from somebody, or some kind of workshop or something. And then the other week would be an informal. Well, suddenly, of course, once we went online, we had to do something every single week. And it was difficult to know what to fill it with. We tended to try and keep every other week being a formal talk. And often the talk that our program secretary had booked would still be booked. But of course, we wouldn't have the person there in person. We'd have them online, even if they lived fairly locally, because we weren't allowed to go out anywhere and mix. So that's what we did. But this person was Martin Lynch. As I said, we involved him on this one. We called this series Getting to Know. We do this about once a month, excuse me. and getting to know was all about getting to know about more about an individual involved with amateur radio in some way. So let's have a look at this, Tammy. Now we're on to our main event, and I'm sure many of you watching will have seen who we're going to meet tonight. It's Martin G4HKS, better known as Martin Lynch, or Martin Lynch's Sons is his business indeed. And maybe rather than saying something for the weekend, we should say something for the Wednesday, Martin, because it's a great pleasure now to welcome Martin Lynch to NARC Live.
And a very, very good evening to you, David and Tammy, and indeed all the people watching at the Radio Club this evening. This is a bit different, isn't it? So first time I think I've done a radio presentation via the internet on Facebook.
Really? Okay.
So, yeah, I don't think so. You're first, so I'm very impressed. Well done. First for nailing me down.
Well, it's nice that it's lovely that you agreed to do it, because you've been in the industry quite a while, and tonight we'd like you to. I won't bore you with that, but by the way, you can watch any of these videos now that we're showing you, because all these are on our YouTube channel, the Norfolk ARC. If you look at the YouTube Norfolk ARC, I'll probably send links to Anthony or someone afterwards if you want, and you can catch any of these videos. There's an awful lot. I don't know how many, but it's a lot now, and including that one with Martin Lynch as well. Well, we worked through the year in 2020, and as we all know, that went on being pretty much an isolated time. So we realized that NARC Live wasn't just going to be something we'd run for a couple of months, but it was going to go on for some time. And but by December, we realized that we hadn't had our AGM, which was due in April. So it was due just a few weeks after we were locked down. But the committee had already met and decided who should receive awards. But of course, there was no way that we had an AGM in person where we could present the awards and trophies as we normally would. So things were getting a little bit easier. We could go out a little bit. And what Tammy and I decided to do was, we knew who had won awards, and we decided to go safely out with a little camera portable setup that we'd made, and present the awards to all the people that received them, but presented them on their doorsteps. Now, this took us a few more weeks than we thought, didn't it, Tammy? Do you remember?
It did, yeah. People weren't there, were they?
No, and we obviously, by the way, it was a complete surprise. So we knew their address and everything, and we used to go around, and we spent 1 month almost doing it. I think 3 or 4 Saturdays, just hoping to catch people at home and record it each time. So I would go there holding the trophy, whatever. Tammy would be on cameras and sound, and there's just us two, because that's all you could do, mix with each other. But we'll show you one now anyway, and we put these together then in a special awards show for the end of the year. And this is one of the awards that we presented. Hello.
What are you doing on my doorstep?
I'm sorry, Nick. This is going to be a bit of a shock to you. Earlier this year, as every year, the committee meet and discuss and decide on awards. And of course, normally we present them at the AGM, which we weren't able to have this year. And I thought, as it's Christmas, this might be a good time to come and award things to people. So we would like to award you, Nick. And if you have a look inside that box, actually, maybe this is a time. Social distancing.
Oh, blimey. I wouldn't know what to do with one.
Well, you'll have to. Do take it out so everybody at home can see.
Blimey.
Because Nick, M0HGU, we would like to present you with the John Wadman key. And in particular, for all the work that you've done in recent years on the projects for Radioactive.
Well, thank you.
But also, we know you're also, as many others are, an active trainer on all 3 levels. Of course, and this is what the committee decided, that we would like you to have this. So we hope you'll accept that. I've got a nice certificate for you as well, and a Christmas card. All right. So there we are. I have to do this socially distanced and all that sort of thing. That's right.
Yeah, 6'6" probably, isn't it? I think.
Well, is it? Okay. And also a little something to munch. There we are. So
thank you very much.
Have you anything to say at a time like this?
I suppose somebody somewhere, Jim, is going to have to make me learn how to use this, aren't they?
I'm not even sure if it's a functioning one, but it's a beautiful bit of, I think
Yeah,
you'll
it's a
agree, it's very heavy.
Lovely bit of engineering, lovely bit of marble on the bottom.
Yeah. And in fact, out of all of we'll leave it there. And there's lots more like that if you do want to watch that. That's definitely on there as well from around December 2021. But it gives you an idea of what we did, trying to be creative, trying to obviously be within the rules of what we were allowed to do. But it was all designed to keep the club together. That was what it was all about all the time. One other thing we just like to show you, I think, is once it did become legal for us all to go out and start mixing outside, we thought that we could get back to direction finding and the fox hunt. Now, it didn't, obviously, fox hunting doesn't appeal to everybody, but it's something that a lot of people are interested in, and we wondered if we could televise it and we get a bit brave and try and do an outside broadcast. So we got some clever equipment together, and we also used things like phones and things and used phone signals to do this. And we covered a whole fox hunt, actually. We'll just show you this before we're going to show you our studio next. But let's just show you, this is the last thing we'll show you as something a bit different that we could
This
do.
includes our upgraded titles.
Oh, our upgraded titles, yes,
Yeah,
which
we decided that our Morse sound on the just a blank screen just didn't cut it anymore, so we had to go for well, you can see. Hello and welcome to this very special edition of NARC Live on Wednesday, the 14th of July, 2021, coming to you from the east coast of England in Norfolk with me, Tammy M0TC, and
David Jones. No volume.
Side of Norwich, and it's brilliant to see you. I think so far anyway the technology is working. The idea of tonight is to let you in on the secrets of how fox hunters do their job, what this is all about. And for those of you just tuning in thinking, what's fox hunting all about? Well, it's not fox hunting. No animals are involved. And it's really all about direction finding, but they call it the fox hunting. And anyway, we're going to tell you about it a bit later. So this is our very first outside broadcast with NARC Live, and we hope you enjoy it. On the show tonight, this, followed by your club news and your pictures and your news. And that'll be later in the program. And we find out who works from a shack like this. Now, if you haven't already entered, we've only actually had one entry on email. So please drop us an email. Drop us a message either on BATC or Facebook with who you think shack it is. And then we'll read that out when we get to that part of the show a bit later on. But we're going to spend the first quarter of an hour or so having a look at what goes involved with fox hunting. And we've got quite a few people here, so let's go now and have a look. We're going to look at some of the equipment involved. Some people's equipment is just based in a car, so we can't easily show you that just yet, but we will be returning to that. Now, I'm sure there's going to be lots of faces that you'll know. If you're a member of Norfolk Amateur Radio Club, you'll know lots of these people already. So let's first up, Stuart and Zena. Remind us of your team. There we go. Now that was exciting for us. I mean, it may look very impressive. I suppose the quality wasn't as great as you can when you're in a studio and everything's cabled up. But we had to work out a way of having talk back as well so that I could hear what the program out was going out. And we streamed that again on Facebook and on British Amateur Television Club. And it's great fun. I don't know if Tammy, you've got any more of that video. If you could just show the bit as well, with the fun bit was in the car. Do you remember just the little bit that
I don't know.
So we did manage to get this, and what Kevin and I did was Kevin M0UJD came, he drove my car, and I was sort of in there with a microphone and a camera, and we just went to see some of the fox hunters as they were going on, and you know, really trying to bring direction finding to people watching at home. We got something we can see, Tammy? Well, it was all live, wasn't it? It must be the best part of 2 hours that we did it.
Yeah.
Don't worry if you can't find
Buffering a
anything,
bit.
but
It's just driving in the car. I can't. It's
okay.
buffering.
We don't want to take too much of your time anyway, but
No, let's get to the
hopefully
juicy
you go.
stuff now.
Now we're going to show you. So now you're live in the studio here, and this is the bit you normally see. And Tammy, as you can see, can show us a 2-shot, and we can show you 1-shot, which is camera 2 over here. Here we are. But we're now going to show you a view that nobody, I don't think, has ever seen in this country anyway, and up from our club, unless they've been in here. The view that we see with the equipment that takes this. So if you're interested in amateur television or any kind of television, then hopefully you'll be interested in this. So Tammy, can we show everybody, our friends in the US, the RATPAC? There we are. That's me now. You can see now. I bet you thought I had hair, but I haven't. This is me. This is live, and this is what we're looking at. So we're going to take you through some of this equipment, because that's what I think what some of you at least are going to be interested in. We've also got a small camera here that Tammy's rigged. These aren't cameras normally that we would have here. Firstly, I'll just take you through some of the basics of things. I think just take you through the geography of the studio. So if we start on the left-hand side, Tammy, that's one of the computers that streams out, isn't it?
This one here is the computer that we use to stream to Facebook. So we're using OBS on here. That is purely just for streaming. And on the other side, normally we have the Facebook feed. Obviously, we're not streaming out at the moment.
Now, the unit that's in front of you with the flashing lights there, that's we can show you maybe a more close-up as well with this. This is the vision mixer. So although we were watching us on Zoom now, we normally only use Zoom to make the connection between our guests and us. And if you have a look now at this is called a Roland V8 HD. It's a video mixer. Some of you will have seen something like this if you've got an interest in this already. And it's quite a powerful box, quite small, but it can do a lot. It's fully digital, so you can freeze frames, you can do all sorts of effects as well. Tammy's now selected, let me see, the one that's red, which is channel 4. So we've put this extra little camera on input 4. And the green, just for your interest, if you don't know already, is the next one. It's the preview one. So when Tammy brings the fader down, I don't know which camera that would be.
The top
it's the one
camera
behind us. So if you do that, you can see what happens live. So that's the vision mixer. To the left of that is an audio mixer as well, which again, I'm sure you've all seen an audio mixer at some point.
There we go. That's our audio mixer.
And that's got 8 channels. It takes feeds from 2 lapel mics we've got here in the studio. And also we've got a couple of backup mics, one in particular, a Shure microphone, a wired microphone, in case these electret microphones gave way or the battery ran out or something like that. They also take audio from feeds, including your feed, because although this is working a little bit different to how it normally would tonight, the Zoom feed is often got our guests on there, so we can control their volume and everything with this. If you were just on one big Zoom call, you haven't got the control of all these things, but you have when you've got an independent mixer. We can also play in videos and graphics and things, and alter different inputs on that mixer, same as video. If we go to a wide shot now, do you think, Tammy, and we'll show you what these computers are all for.
Oh.
So this is the next thing along. So you'll see there's a lot of computers. Typically, we use 5 computers to do what we do for NARC Live. The next computer here, it's what we call a caption.
We should just say that this one here is a screen.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's not actually a computer. So this is the screen that comes directly out of the mixer. So this is showing me what's coming next, preview, and then what's going out there. And then I've got 8 channels along the bottom, which we're actually using all 8 tonight, which we don't normally do because we've got an extra couple of cameras. And then the big screen here right in front of us, that is program out. So that is always what is going out. So it's a big screen there, so we can both see that and know what's going out. And obviously we've got the all important clock here. And it's 2:52 a.m. here.
Don't feel too bad for us. 2:52 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. And this, so that, yeah, you're quite right to go through those things, Tammy. And the key for us, actually, when you're broadcasting live, is this big screen here, this one, because that you can always see in the corner of your eye, and that is program out. You have them in big TV studios as well. It's very important that you can actually see what's going out. This next computer here, we actually sort of nickname it our caption Mac, but it's where a lot of the graphics, if I put my head down a little bit here, it's where all the graphics are on. We've got a slide going to come up next now. So it's much like if you've done a PowerPoint presentation or things, it's a bit like that, but we can put videos, we can put the titles on there with video and music and everything else from here. And we'll add subtitles, we'll add captions and things like that on there. Now this middle computer here,
what's that next to your head?
Pardon? Next to my head. Oh yeah, I'll move down. This here. You'll see there's British Amateur Television Club this side, and this side is Facebook, and that's where we monitor people's comments and messages. So earlier tonight we had messages and things like that on there. That's from the small camera, and you can see what there. We've just got some messages here from people. We had a talk earlier this evening about a de-expedition actually to Rockall, and that's what that computer's for. The next computer along is where we're talking to you on. So this is our Zoom computer, if you like. This one here is actually the connection between you and us, and we can see that you've got some, if I move this mic out of the way, you can just see you there. And this is where we feed video in. All of these computers have got video cables in, and so we can take the video to and from this into our vision mixer and control the program that way. This little screen here, it's kind of like an auto cue. It doesn't completely cover the lens, which a true auto cue does, but it's a good thing for me for a prompt. I don't tend to use that for programs that we do like NARC Live, but when we will tell you about some other programs that we do for other people later on, and that's when it's more important, when I've got to say something that's on in a particular way that people want. So that's what this screen is useful for. And finally then, this computer, which you can just see on the right hand side here, that's a similar computer to the other one in that it does the main live streaming to, in this case, the British Amateur Television Club, which is, we use their streamer. And also it does do the digital recording of the program. And that's what those 5 computers are used for. We've also got a sixth computer, which was just out of shot actually, which we've used tonight to play in some videos.
I've got a laptop just here next to me, which is what we use to play the YouTube videos out this evening.
So I hope that's given you a good idea. You'll be able to ask us some questions if we've got time at the end as well.
2 cameras as well.
Yeah,
so
true,
the one in the middle, just like if I
This one?
sort of point, no,
Oh,
that one there. I'm looking at the screen.
Yeah, this one.
See, so this one here, that's our double head shot. And then obviously the one above the auto cue there is the single head shot, which is zoomed in further.
Yeah. When we do some programs, Tammy is always the vision mixer and director effectively of the program, if you're used to television terms. On NARC Live, we do this together because it's quite nice to do that, and it's a little bit more informal. Some of the things that we do, they're a bit more formal, and they'll just be me on camera effectively, but Tammy will be doing all of the operation of this on the other side. So I think that's covered this room pretty much, hasn't it? Do you think?
I believe so.
What we thought we would quickly do is show you what we did how many hours ago? We did it at 7:30 p.m. UK time. It's now 2:56 a.m. but so a few hours ago now, and we thought we'd just show you what we did, but you do it so that you could see from behind us exactly what we did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
don't feel that makes sense, but
no, that doesn't make sense. So we'll basically do the start of our
NARC Live,
normal NARC Live program. Although I won't change the mixer because obviously you guys are up there and watch us from behind, so you will see sort of how it goes.
We do have a script, by the way. We always write a script, which tells us the news and things like that to read, which our members send us all the week, club news that they've got themselves. We'll just show you anyway the first opening seconds of this.
Yeah, I can't, as I say, I can't, it's going to be on this screen. That's the only thing, isn't it? So it's from behind. So I'll just talk you through it. So what would happen is it would then come on and it would be a double head shot of us, which would be this double head shot. And then we'll start talking.
And we say,
put us back to this camera.
Yeah. And I say hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday, the 17th of July, 2024. Coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. On tonight's show, Emil DL8JJ, who shares with us the challenges of last year's Rockall expedition. We have club news with pictures from Barford Radio Rally and more news of some more summer events. And we find out what on earth this is. And normally, as I said, we won't do any more than that. And then I'll read news and sometimes we have pictures. But hopefully you had an eye on this camera, this screen here. This is where Tammy puts the
I
slides.
should probably actually put it in a preview, shouldn't
Oh,
I?
you could have done that,
I
couldn't
could
you?
have done that. We could just do it back
You want to do it one more time?
just real quick. Just give me
We
3
worked through how to do
seconds.
this best to show you, because obviously this is very different to the way we do it normally at home.
That's the wrong
So,
one.
Tammy. We also, on this mixer, she's looking at things called picture in picture. We kind of get used to using Zoom now, where it puts small pictures of people in. The advantage of the way we do it with a vision mix is we can control all of that. You're not just reliant on, for example, with Zoom, who is talking and that sort of thing. And we can also control the size of the pictures, and we can put in 2 or 3 pictures from different places as well. So if we have 2 or 3 guests from different places, we can put them on the screen. So I'm just buying Tammy a little bit of time now. So we'll actually now could show you. I suppose if you could put that one as a pip. Is that what you're going to do? Put the wide shot as a pip. Show the full screen. That would be the way to do
I
it,
could do that, couldn't
wouldn't
I?
it?
Yeah. The wide shot is a bit. Hang on. Oh, so 7. Okay.
Right. So now what we're going to try and play to you, I think, if it works.
Yeah.
So this is different. We're going to play to you exactly what everybody at home would have seen earlier.
And
then, but look in the small picture in the top bottom right hand corner, and you'll see what we see as this is going out.
so what I'll do, because we
You
normally
need to
have the
put that on that big
titles,
screen, don't
is
you,
what
really?
yeah, I will do. So we're going for that. So we've got picture in picture, and then we've got this. So this is our titles, and we would normally hear this as well, but we played this a few moments ago, so I'll play it again.
One of the reasons, by the way, we compiled our music, I'll just tell you this while this is playing out, is because if you go onto Facebook in particular and play anybody else's music, it can kick you off because it recognizes there's a copyright owned by somebody else. So we thought if we composed our own music, there couldn't be a problem. So that's one of the reasons we did it. So anyway, just bear in mind the bottom right is not what everybody at home would normally see. And then I'll read the first bits of the script.
So normally I'm now saying to David at the moment, right, now I'm going to put the mics up, get ready, get ready, get ready.
Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday, the 17th of July, 2024. Coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. Great to see you. On tonight's show, Emil DL8JJ shares with us the challenges of last year's Rockall expedition. We have club news with pictures from Barford Radio Rally and news of more summer events. And we find out what on earth this is.
So there you go.
And then I would read the club news and everything else. So there we are. You've hopefully seen what this looks like from our perspective and everybody at home. And I must admit, last year, for the first time, when we did our radioactive event from here, we let people into the studio really for the first time, didn't we? And they were really quite surprised. Even people, I think, who weren't interested in television particularly, thought it was a bit mind-blowing that there were so many computers and everything involved. But we love it. We do use the tools to, you know, hopefully make something fairly professional. And in return for that, and I didn't mention the numbers, but over COVID, ironically, we doubled the size of our club. So now we have 242 members, which for one club in 4 clubs or 3 clubs in Norfolk, you know, is quite a large number. And we still get regularly 40, 50, 60 people watching live typically. And then we do upload every program now onto our YouTube channel, and then we get another 40, 50 people watch that, sometimes more. Now that's nearly the full story of NARC Live. I know it's now 3 o'clock for us, so it's nearly an hour. I hope it's all right just to tell you about one other thing that came from this, which is quite important and something that you probably will, an organisation that you will have heard of, because the Radio Society of Great Britain, which is like the ARRL for you, they saw what we were doing for our club, for NARC Live. One of the members in the area was a volunteer for the RSGB. And they contacted us and said, could you do something for us? Because we need to engage with all the RSGB members, 21,000 of them as well. And we've not got any previous experience of doing stuff live online or whatever. So basically, we helped them produce a webinar called Tonight at 8. And it was really only meant to initially run 6 or 9 months or something, but we're still doing it now once a month for them. It's a webinar of all different types of subjects. It really covers a huge range of different things. The one we just recorded, or not recorded, it goes live, was with Hans Summers, G0UML. I think that's his call sign. I hope that's right. Who is of QRP Labs, talking about the QMX Plus, and some of you may have heard of that. And you can watch any of these on the RSGB's YouTube channel. We did start doing this for them, and then they realized that they wouldn't be able to hold their annual convention, which of course was always an in-person event. So they asked us and also some colleagues and some similar like-minded people in Cambridge, they're called the Camhams, if they could do something, if we could do something for them to help them do a convention online, because there's no way in 2020 that you could have big groups meeting in halls. So we've got some pictures, I think, here to show you. Firstly, the RSGB online convention, Tammy, was this one. This picture here just shows you more or less the same studio as we used to be, the same room rather as we used to be in. Although that looks a bit of a mess, you only see a small picture, and that was me introducing various speakers over the day. I think that it was only a one-day conference at the convention then, and we did one stream, for beginners, and then the Camhams did another stream. There's another view of that there. Quite a lot of computers, because that was quite a intensive, because it was 8 hours of live television basically, with people coming in from all over the world to do talks for the club. I remember Ray Novak of ICOM coming on, and lots of other speakers as well. So that was complex. We had to do a lot of planning for that, but that was very interesting to do. We also now, as a result of that, do the RSGB AGM. The RSGB AGM is something that we do for them in April, but they couldn't do an in-person AGM. It was all had to be online, and it was behind closed doors essentially in 2020. That happens in April as well, and there was no time to arrange anything else. But the following year and every year since, we've actually produced the annual general meeting, the online production of it for the RSGB, and that's live, and that's probably the most complex thing we do.
Yep.
160 slides, I think it takes, because all the awards are announced on there. Everything has graphics. It's very well planned, very well rehearsed. But also for the first time this year, we just did it in April, we had some people asking live questions. One was from a boat in the Orkney Islands, I think. So it was good fun to do. Very last thing we want to just talk to you about briefly now is just show you what we did for the convention when it could come back to being in person, which was in 2022. And we've got some pictures here and videos that Tammy did.
It's a walkthrough video. Yeah. So this is our setup, our live stream studio at the RSGB convention. So we take all this equipment with us, we rig it in one day. It takes us the whole day to rig it, and we build ourselves a mini studio.
The first year we finished at 1 in the morning. I think we had to start at 7 the next day. So there's a camera that was on the continuity. I did the continuity there from that little desk there.
So it's a similar to setup to what we have in here. We've got a couple of extra laptops there because we take feeds from the convention rooms and pop those out to people online. So we have to have a couple of extra computers to do that.
And we have guests, we have live interviews and things.
We do.
But it's good fun to do. It was challenging though. Again, it's about an 8-hour live broadcast, which we run from there. You've got a quick other video. Do you want to show this one?
It's just set up, that's fine.
Okay. So there we are, guys. Sorry, just a little bit over the hour, but I hope you found that interesting. What all about Norfolk Amateur Radio Club, and then what we did when the pandemic came and how we've responded to it since. So we are now where we meet every other week approximately at the school, but speakers and talks we still do online in the way with NARC Live. And that's how we've been doing it, because frankly there's no point in hiring a school to project someone who's not possibly even in the country, let alone in the same area, and that's the way the members have preferred to watch it. They can watch it from the comfort of their homes, as you're doing now. They can adjust the volume as they want, and frankly if it's something they're not particularly interested in, they can leave, they can switch it off, which they couldn't really do in person. So that's the way Norfolk Amateur Radio Club runs now, and I hope it's been of interest to you and maybe inspires some of you to give it a go, because Although online is not for everybody, and I am really conscious of how important it is that people do get together and meet in person. It's a great tool and a very low cost way, really, of running a club. And it does open the whole world to you as well for speakers. When we had Hans on for Tonight at 8 with QRP Labs a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he lives in Turkey. We were able to do a really good presentation with him. Anyway, from Tammy and me, we're open to questions if you like.
Dennis, haven't we, for the last few
Yes, we
weeks
have had Anthony and Dennis, exactly.
on
So
live, so
we've done enough talking, I think. And my voice is almost giving out now at 3:08. Back to you.
any questions?
Yes, this is Gene in Texas. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, first of all, great presentation. Absolutely fantastic presentation, and the pictures were spot on. Two questions, I'll try to make it quick. When it comes to doing your presentations in the schools or demonstrating things in schools, or even, maybe having a mini club in the schools, how easy is that? What challenges did you face convincing the school board, the administration, to allow you, other amateurs in, to teach, STEM fields, to these individuals? That's question number one. So I'll give you a chance to think about that. Question number two, in England, if you're a licensed amateur radio operator in England, can you use that same license in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, or any other of the Commonwealth nations? That's my two questions. Okay.
So the first one, of course, there are concerns with any young people working with adults working with young people. And the UK is no different, I'm sure, to the US in that way. We do have tests, the thing called a DBS check here, which is a check basically that you haven't got some kind of record of misconduct. Schools are generally very happy for us to do this. We do have to at least one of us who is there when young people are there has to have a DBS certificate. And there are lots of safeguards. A lot of them are common sense, really. You certainly never put yourself in a position or let anybody else be in a position where they're on their own with a young person. That's one of the main rules. I won't go through all of them, but that's one of the main safety things. And you might have noticed, I don't know, in the pictures that we showed of Bright Sparks, there were lots of other adults as well around the room. So there's nobody on their own particularly. That's very important. We do encourage parents of the children to come, and they often do. Sometimes when the children get a bit older, 15, 16-year-olds as well, they don't come and they're happy to leave them with us. But it's just being sensible, really, and making sure it's no good telling the whole club about all the things you've got to be careful of, really. It's just whoever's responsible. I've got a DBS certificate, and the person who runs Bright Sparks does as well. And we always make sure that we're there just to make sure that things are sensible. The other event that you saw, the Science Day, that's open to the public anyway, and children always come accompanied with their parents.
But the school actually invite us to that.
They do. They want us to do that. Yeah. So that's an open day for public. But good question. The second part of your question was about licensing. Well, you may have heard that the UK has just had a huge number of license changes just happened in February this year. They consulted on it last year. Our organisation is called Ofcom. They actually issue the license for radio amateurs, and in fact, before now, you certainly you can use your license in any of these other states like Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, but they would have prefixes, as you probably know. They would have W for Wales, M for Scotland, and these prefixes have been mandatory that you use them. One of the big changes, and it's a bit controversial because not everybody agrees with it, is that now those are optional. So if you do live in Scotland, but you don't want to put an M in your call sign, a prefix, so it would be GM, for example, my call sign is G7URP, so I'd be GM7URP. From February this year, you do not have to use those prefixes. Now, it is a bit controversial because it makes it harder for things like contests and things to know where those calls are coming from within the UK. But nevertheless, that's what they decided to do to simplify. But you can still use them, but they're purely optional.
And alternatively now as well, England now has its own prefix. So
Mm.
we could be, technically, we are now, you are ME7
Good
URP, and I'm ME0 TC, but you
So
don't have to.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so are you saying that there's a potential that for one individual can have two call signs?
No,
It's not two call
it's
signs.
it's called a prefix.
Prefix that goes in, so it always goes as the second. It goes after the first letter, so it goes between your first letter and the number. So it varies the call sign slightly, but it's a regional locator. So
Perfect,
it says what region you're actually coming from, but you don't have to use that now. So if you don't use it, it means you're from somewhere within the UK and not specifically any of the countries.
And in fact, in your license, it's always been the case that there's been I think it's an X on your license.
Yeah.
Where that prefix could be, or where that secondary locator, as Tammy said, that's a formal name for it, could be. But now it's just optional, but you can use it in the same way as other things are optional. I can't tell you all of the changes. There are probably 80 or 90 changes. I can send you details if you like them,
Well,
but the differences. But
another big one is you used to have to, like, if you were mobile, you'd have to put stroke M on the end, or if you're portable, stroke P. They're now optional, or you can make up your own, which sounds a bit crazy. So
anything.
Yeah, so you could put, like, I don't know, MP or something, my place, something really like that. But you could actually, they're saying you can make up your own things for the end of your call sign.
When the RSGB, I mean, the Ofcom made these decisions and did a consultation of a document. So every amateur was invited to respond to it. But when the RSGB did programs for it, and we did programs with the RSGB for this, for some of our webinars and things, we helped them do it. They called it the biggest changes in licensing conditions in a generation, and I think they're right. They are very big changes. I don't think you'll notice many of them as operators, but the very one you've mentioned there, though, that probably is something you'd mentioned. So no longer is someone from Scotland, for example, they don't have to put that in. I think the general consensus is actually with most people, they'd rather still use it. And as Tammy said, they've introduced an E to make it consistent so that we could signify that we are in England, for example, which there was no such thing before. So, but yeah, we can use to directly answer your question, we can use our license in any parts of the United Kingdom.
Okay, so Australia and Canada?
I'm not sure. No, they're not the same.
No, so you can only work abroad if you have a full license, and it's an IARU country, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. SEPT agreement. It's part of the SEPT agreement, I think it's called.
So I think
I thought when you mentioned them earlier, the Northern Ireland and things like that, yeah, they're all part of the United Kingdom, but Australia and other places are not necessarily.
It's not, it doesn't include the Commonwealth. It's just the home country with our license.
Sorry if I misunderstood.
Thanks a lot for the answer. Sorry to drag this out, but great information. Appreciate it.
Good, no problem.
Okay,
You guys, you run a nightly news station on BBC.
Well, I did say I worked for them for some time, but it was lovely to be able to reuse those skills and involve Tammy as well, to be honest, because although the club seemed to be grateful for what we did, and they gave us a lovely award actually after a year or so of doing it, to be honest, it was good for us too as well, because we worked together as well as professionally, so this gave us as a married couple something for us to do and gave us something interesting. It was nice to be able to show Tammy. Initially, I was showing her what to do with this sort of thing from my experience, but now I'd actually say that she probably knows at least as much as me, and probably more on some things. You're more familiar than I am. So,
good answer there, Anthony. Go ahead.
I can't hear.
Thank you very much, Tammy and David, for staying up. It's wonderful, and having been on the other end, it's great to see what goes on behind the scenes. I've done a number of presentations for you, and as a presenter, it's a pleasure to do presentations for you. I mean, it's the experience of doing a presentation for your group is so much easier as a presenter than it is for a lot of organizations. And having done the RSGB 8 p.m. session also, or I forget, is it at 8? Is that what it's called?
Tonight at 8.
Tonight at 8. That's it. Yes,
Yeah.
I did one of those also, so that was great fun. But it's remarkable. And the thing that I think is also great is the opportunity to have presenters from all over the world has been great for a lot of groups. And being a presenter, it's been great. I know that we've had discussions many times after we went off the air. When Dennis and I were there, we had a lot of discussions afterward with you and Tammy that were great, because we just don't exchange enough information between different hams, and to know what's going on. So it's been a great thing. So thank you very much for
Likewise,
doing
Anthony.
this.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure.
I have to second what Anthony said. This has been fabulous, brilliant. Really seeing the inner workings of NARC Live is just wonderful. And like Anthony said, being there on the other side with you on Zoom has been a real great experience, and we appreciate that a great deal, and appreciate you coming here and joining us in the middle of the morning, the wee hours there. Really, really appreciate you coming, and I hope we get a chance. I know Anthony's been with you many times now, and I hope I get a chance to do some more programs with you as well. I would look forward to that. So we'll have to stay in touch.
Okay.
Good.
One other thing we usually do here, Barry, what we got in chat?
Nothing in chat. We're all up to date.
Okay, he's my safety guard.
I think we need to let Tammy and David go to bed now, or get up for breakfast if they need to, depending on what they're going to do.
In fact, I'm wondering, we actually blocked out the window here so that we get just only our own light. You don't want the mixed lights. If you've done film and things, you'll know what I mean. You don't want to mix natural light. But I have a feeling when we go out, I think it might be sunrise soon.
No, 34.
Oh, we've got okay. That's all right.
All right, yeah.
Might go for a few hours bed. Okay.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
okay. Anybody else got anything before we pull the plug? Hearing nothing, I'm going to say 73s and see you guys all next week.
Lovely.
73.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, and thanks, of course, again to Anthony and Dennis for the talks they've given us. It's been a great pleasure to show you behind the scenes here as well. Thank you.
Definitely going to have you guys back.
Oh, and I sent you a who would work in this shack photo where I blurred out my call sign where it's there. So you have one now, but there's a good tip in there because it has the blimp in it, so you can see if anyone can identify where it's from by the Goodyear blimp.
All right.
Cool.
Okay. Thanks very much again.
Bye-bye.
And thanks everybody.